You won't believe what happened to Janis Joplin the night she died. She was wild, raw, and powerful. A voice like thunder, and a soul soaked in blues. Janis Joplin didn't just sing songs, she bled them. Every lyric, every scream. It was her way of living out loud. But on one quiet night in October 1970, that fire went out. The world was told she died of a heroin overdose. A sad ending for a rock and roll rebel, right? But what if that story isn't the full truth? The official reports were quick and simple. Accidental overdose. The headlines labeled her another tragic star who flew too close to the sun. But there's a side of this story that's never made it to the spotlight. A darker, more chilling side. One that raises more questions than it answers. Because when you dig a little deeper, everything about Janis's final hours starts to feel off. Let's rewind to just one day before she died. Janis was at Sunset Sound Studios in LA, finishing up her now legendary album Pearl. She was alive with energy, her voice a little rough, yeah, but electric. She laughed with the crew. She talked about her future. Everyone around her said she was in one of the best creative zones they'd ever seen her in. And then, boom. 24 hours later, she was found lifeless on the carpet of her hotel room at the landmark Motor Hotel. Half a cigarette still between her fingers. Her eyes closed like she was just napping. No note, no signs of a struggle, just silence. Now here's where it gets weird. A hotel worker came forward years later, never gave their name, saying that the door to Janis's room was locked. From the outside. Wait, what? That's not something you usually do when you're alone, or worse, when you're overdosing. And stranger still, everything in the room was cleaned out almost immediately. No bottle, no syringe, nothing. It was like someone had hit the reset button on the whole scene. An old LAPD detective even admitted, anonymously, that officers were told to drop it. Don't ask questions. Don't dig too deep. Why? Who had the power to shut down an investigation into the death of one of rock's biggest stars? And then comes the call. The night Janis died, a sound engineer, an old friend from Columbia Records, said his phone rang around 2 a.m. On the other end, Janis. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't high. She was terrified, whispering that someone was following her, that they didn't want the Pearl album released. She said something might have happened to Jimmy, as in Jimi Hendrix, who had died just 16 days earlier under similarly murky circumstances. Fast forward to now. Nearly 55 years later, a scratchy audio recording pops up on a private music collector forum. It's allegedly Janis, and she's whispering into a mic, sounding out of breath and absolutely panicked. "They're following me," she says. "I think they did something to Jimmy. I'm next." And now people are asking, were these coincidences? Or was something darker happening behind the curtains of the music world? Janis's friends later recalled how she got paranoid toward the end. She wouldn't go anywhere alone. She even hired someone just to keep watch. When anyone brought it up, she just shrugged and said, "They don't want me talking, especially not in my songs." But who were they? Some think it was just the label, nervous about her raw lyrics. Others believe it was something bigger, more organized. Something or someone making sure that outspoken artists didn't cross a certain line. It doesn't stop there. A former Sunset Sound employee, listed as a post-production tech in 1970, leaked word of an unreleased tape. It was labeled SPA H1970 Locked, marked red, a code meaning it was never to be edited, played, or released. And what was on it? A recording of Janis alone in the studio, whispering into the mic. At first she's doing vocal checks, but then her tone changes. "They're here again," she says. "The man in the black coat. He sat in the back, didn't smile. He never smiles." And then, one last sentence. "If I disappear, tell them I tried to warn you." Let that sink in. Photos from that same studio session surfaced at a private auction just months ago. In one, Janis is mid-recording, and in the background you can clearly see him. A man in a long black coat, no badge, no camera, just watching. He appears again in other old photos. Backstage with Hendrix near Jim Morrison, behind Brian Jones, all dead within 2 years. Facial recognition experts were brought in. Same man, same cold stare. No name, no record of employment, never aged. Who was he? Someone from inside the industry once said they called him the auditor. He'd show up, and suddenly, projects would get delayed, lyrics rewritten, albums buried. He wasn't there for the music. He was there to make sure certain messages didn't get out. Coincidence? Or was there a pattern? Because when you line it all up, Janis, Jimmy, Jim Morrison, and even others like Brian Jones, it starts to look less like a string of tragedies and more like a silent purge. One by one, voices that pushed too hard, got too loud, or asked the wrong questions, disappeared. Janis once said in an interview, "When I sing, I give everything I've got, but at the end of the day, I still go home alone with a glass of whiskey." That wasn't rock star drama. That was real pain. She didn't drink to party. She drank to cope. With the pressure, with the loneliness, and maybe with the fear. She was told to soften her lyrics, to be less intense, to stop making people uncomfortable. But Janis wasn't built for filters. She was fire, pure and messy. And maybe that's why someone decided she had to be silenced. So maybe her death wasn't just another overdose. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe, in those final moments, Janis didn't just die. She was erased. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with this heavy ride. What do you think? Was it just addiction and tragedy? Or is there something much deeper lurking behind the music? If this shook you even a little, hit that like button and subscribe. We're digging even deeper into what really happened to the legends we lost way too soon. Janis tried to warn us. Maybe now, it's time we finally listen.